To Martin of Tours, remembered 11th of November. Martin was born in the early 300s in what is now Hungary. The son of a tribune in the Roman army, his father reached veteran status and received land to settle in northern Italy, where Martin was raised. From the age of 10 he started attending Christian services, much against the wishes of his parents. Christianity had been legalized in 313 and was growing in the Eastern Empire and cities, but remained largely unacceptable amongst polite society. The son of a senior officer, Martin joined a regiment of heavy cavalry at the age of 15. He spent most of his service in Gaul, and was a part of the emperor's escort during his tours of the empire. The most famous event in Martin's life took place during this time. Entering the city of Amiens, Martin saw an elderly beggar nearly naked except for some rags. Martin took his sword and divided his great military cloak, an expensive marker of his rank and position, and used not only to keep out the weather, but for sleeping and making camp. He gave half of this cloak to the beggar. That night he dreamed that he saw Christ, now wearing that half cloak, who thanked him for the clothing. After this, Martin felt able to be baptized into the Christian faith. The dates are uncertain, but Martin is known to have served in the army for 2 years after he was baptized as a Christian. The conflict between his faith and his work came to a head when, during fighting in western Germany, he declared that he was a soldier of Christ and that it was unlawful for him to fight. He was put under guard and charged with cowardice in the face of the enemy. Martin countered these charges by volunteering to ride unarmed ahead of his regiment's advance in the next engagement. His superiors were keen to take up this offer, but the conflict ended before they had a chance. After being discharged from the army, Martin lived for a while in Tours, becoming a follower of St. Hilary, before returning to his old home over the Alps. A hard journey, he is said to have confronted the devil and converted a brigand before he made it back to the family home. There he managed to convert his mother and some others to Christianity, but his father was unmoved by his son's faith. At the time, arguments between Christians were rife on the matter of whether Christ was fully human or human and divine. Martin defended Orthodox Christianity against the Arian cause, which was popular in the imperial court. He did so vehemently that he was publicly flogged on the order of the Bishop of Milan before being expelled from the city. Martin lived for a while after this on an island as a hermit, before returning to Gaul with St. Hilary, who was returning to take up the role of bishop. Martin established a monastery in the region, built in the ruins of an old Roman bathhouse and villa. As the community and Martin's reputation grew, he was invited by the congregation at Tours to minister to a sick individual there. Once there, this was revealed to be a trick, and Martin was taken by the people to the cathedral with the intention of making him their bishop, the post being then vacant. One legend tells that Martin escaped and hid in a barn of geese, his location only being given away by their distressed honking. In any case, Martin did agree to become the third bishop of Tours. As bishop, he set about establishing monasteries and destroying pagan shrines. One account has his miraculous intervention stopping flames from a burning temple passing onto the connected house, thus saving the building. On another occasion, a pagan group consented to having their sacred pine tree cut down only if Martin agreed to stand directly in its path when felled. He agreed, and the tree, according to witnesses, miraculously swerved to avoid hitting him. Martin retreated out of the city of Tours to live in a monastery across the river. He instituted a proto-parish system for his diocese, and made it the practice of the bishop to visit each parish once a year, travelling by foot, by boat, or by donkey. Martin travelled to Spain to argue with Magnus Maximus, a name that can be translated roughly as Big Max, a general who had seized the throne in the region. Wanting to curry favour with one side of the church during a theological dispute, he had decided to treat the dissenting heretical party as he would any other enemy in his secular duties. He had their leader imprisoned, pending execution. Martin, on behalf of the church, went to implore Magnus not to execute this man, and to remove himself from the debates of the church. He relented for a while, but when Martin left, the emperor decided to carry out the execution, killing the dissenting bishop for his heretical beliefs. The first ever execution for heresy horrified all sides of the church, and started something of an unpleasant precedent. Martin died on the 11th of November, 397. He was buried with great fanfare at Tours, and a church was raised over the site, eventually becoming an abbey. The French government demolished this in 1802, having previously turned it into a government stable, before selling off the stone and building a road over the ground to stop the church being re-established in the future. One unexpected legacy comes from the cloak that Martin shared with the Beggar. The half that he kept became the great relic of the French kings, who carried it with them on military campaigns. The Latin for a small cloak is cappa. The priest who carried it for the military in camp became known as the capellani. Eventually, this title was used by all priests accompanying armies, becoming over time chaplains. The tent, or small temporary church the cloak was carried in, took the name capella, which eventually became chapel. A brave man, a confident soldier, and a reluctant bishop, St. Martin is remembered on the 11th of November.